Buddy, this is Chris Baker, your host of the podcast Tell Me Your Story. Thank you for watching and listening. And today's special guest is Hillary Goldthwait-Fowles, right?
Mhm.
Are you still there? Okay.
Yeah, that works.
We're going to do what we always do. We're just going to jump right into this and just talk about, start off with the childhood. Where'd you grow up at? Where did it all start for you?
It started not too far from where I currently live now. I was born in a small community in Maine in the southern part of the state, so about 20 minutes south of Portland. I'm an only child. My mother and my father were young. They were 22. They had been married for a couple of years, and there I was born. Um, I had a great childhood. I was very fortunate to have a loving and supportive family on both sides, especially on my mother's side of the family. And I spent a lot of time with my mother's mother, so my grandmother. And I'm actually wearing her necklace. This was her wedding silver. So when she passed, everyone in the family got one. So she's always with me. She was very much the family nurturer. That was the hub. We always spent time at her house. I would go there after school. There's a lot of stories about that, but family was always very important. I was always brought up with family first, like family is everything. These are your people. And even though I was an only child, I have three cousins that on my mother's side that I'm very, very close to, very much like siblings, including all the teasing and, play ping pong with a badminton racket and play badminton with a ping pong paddle because I was the youngest of four. So, you get to learn a little bit about resilience, but you also learn about what you will and won't tolerate from other people when you have those kinds of experiences. In my family, it's, they would kind of like tease and make fun, but not in a mean sort of way. It was kind of like, we love you, we make fun of you. And it wasn't, I never really felt that it was done out of spite. It was just done because we love to laugh, and we laugh at ourselves and we laugh at each other. But it really just kind of, for me, helped me to remember I didn't have to be perfect and that I wasn't perfect. Because as you know, in our society and in our world, there's this desire or need to be perfect. And I don't get it because nobody is, but it's been very deep within me. And I've kind of wrestled with that my whole life. Like everything has to be just so, and everything has to be perfect, but we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. So I've just kind of learned to be the best person I can in any moment, and just to try and be as kind as I can be, and to be compassionate, and to have an open heart and an open mind when it comes to dealing with other people or other situations, or even people who might not be as nice to you as they should be. There's a lot going on behind the scenes you don't know, and it's not personal. But when I was a child, I didn't have that lesson yet. I hadn't learned that. What I've come to kind of understand about myself was I had social anxiety as a kid. Even though I loved to be around people, there was only so much of it I could deal with, and then I needed to go home and like go hang out in my room and play with my Barbie dolls. So
I totally agree with you there, though. It's something that we're not really brought up with, just being taught how to be grateful for everything, and it's
yeah,
just a
yeah.
small thing, really.
My mom was an educator. She actually was in 1977 when I was about 5. So it was in kindergarten. My mom got a job. My dad worked a bajillion jobs. My father is the hardest worker out there, and everybody was poor. We were not wealthy at all. But my parents made sure we had food on the table. We had a roof over our heads. I had clothes to wear. I had access to things, that most people might not have. But my father worked 2 and 3 jobs to make things happen for us. And I'm really grateful for his work ethic, because I've kind of gravitated towards that. And, I think he gets his value from work, and I think I kind of do too. But my mom, when I turned 5, worked at a school in Limerick, Maine, as a ed tech, a paraprofessional for kids who were coming out of institutions because the ADA was passed, and they were bringing kids out of institutions with disabilities into schools. And so the classroom my mom was in the moldy basement, where like all of the supplies were in all of these old desks and all these old chairs, and you had to navigate through this maze of yuck to get to this room. And I was upstairs in kindergarten, and I would always wonder, why aren't they up here with us? Why don't they have the nice big windows and the desks and all of the crayons and all of the things? Because I would go down there and I used to pretend to be sick. I would pretend that I had stomach aches and I felt nauseous, and I would say that I missed my mom, and I didn't. I wanted to go and be in her room because the kids that she was with were amazing. And I always felt they deserved to be with us. And I never understood why they didn't. And it was, because in that back then in the 70s, like Judy Heumann, who was an amazing activist, that led to all of these things that are happening in the 70s with the disability rights community, it was about honoring them and their humanity. And I have these wonderful memories of taking my work down there and going and sitting with them, and sitting with, kids that she had age ranges from my age at the time, which was 5 to like 17, which was, nowadays that just doesn't happen. That's not legal. But back then they didn't really know what to do because policy had changed for the better, but the supports in place were just becoming known. They were just becoming there. And what I learned from my mom in that was just to treat people with dignity and respect, but also with some humor and some love. So that really sticks with me and has kind of influenced my career path and where I was in life, and kind of the people that I would gravitate towards and the people I would want to include, and just always recognized early on that there were certain people that belonged and certain people that didn't. And I never, even to this day, I don't get it. I don't get that at all. Yeah. I do, but I don't. Like, I don't agree with it because there are isms behind it. And I just think we're all human beings. That's our common thread, right?
Preach it.
And so if we can look at each other, human being to human being, I don't have to necessarily you don't have to be my best friend, but we have something in common where our common thread is our humanity.
Yes.
And I can look at you and say, I see you and I honor you and wish you well and send love and gratitude in my heart to you. But, we don't have to agree. We don't have to necessarily like each other or be BFFs, but you need to know you belong.
Amen.
And that for me was something that I think I tried to do very early on as a kid, because I always kind of felt like I didn't myself, because I saw things so differently than all the other kids did. I was just kind of, I was the kid that would get the work done before everybody else did, and would be like sitting under a tree reading a book kind of thing, my Barbie dolls.
I want to jump in here real quick. It's so being that your mom was helping out, the kids and stuff, do you think that was a big influence for you that helped you see it more clear?
Absolutely. I tend to think that her experiences in working with the disability community, both in school and then in, in homes, independent living homes that were supervised, for kids, for adults, adult care and adult living. Back then they called them group homes, which it's, they're homes. And my mom would always talk about the dignity of, the people that she was serving, and that you don't put, a Minnie Mouse shirt on, someone who's 55. You need to ask them their preferences and what they would like, and take them shopping and actually buy them things that they want to have. And, showers and shaving and grooming and dressing, and just affirming their humanity in the way that made sense for them. And that always stuck with me. They were very much a part of our family. There were barbecues, there were events, and they were always a part of those experiences. So I've always been around it, and I've always loved it. And I feel that my life, and this might sound selfish, my life is so much more enhanced when I'm around the variability of people. And in Maine, there's not a lot of diversity. The only diversity I really had growing up was disability. So that I think does speak to where I wound up, in my career and in my life.
And just really how awesome it is, though. Just to be able to, at a young age, to have your eyes open to seeing the world differently, seeing it more beautiful.
We have to. There's too much stuff that's not. And that, I hope that changes someday, but that's also variability. Because if everything was rosy and copacetic, it would be kind of boring. I mean, it would feel good, but
Yeah,
I've learned also in life too that the challenges that we face in our life, the pain points in our life that we have faced also make us stronger, make us
excellent,
better, and make us more compassionate because there are other people that might have gone through something similar.
excellent point. I just want to kind of tap more into it for the watcher and listener right now. Thank you for putting up with my voice, but um, really, it's just like put yourself in the shoes of somebody. Imagine, or just yourself. Imagine at one time where you kind of felt like somebody made you kind of feel dumb, just made you feel stupid, or just out of place altogether. And how did that feel to you in that moment? Just think about that's what she's talking about. Just including everybody, making everybody feel no different from anybody else. And to be able to do it at a young age is it's really beautiful. Really, really beautiful just to help them understand that they're not alone. They're not alone.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger thing is we're really not alone.
Yeah,
There are things bigger than us that come into play with all of that. And, if you're faith or, believe in energy or God or whatever it is, or space, even the universe is huge. There's so much more to this world than ourselves and our own egos. And so it's a lot of unlearning one has to do, from conditioning of society to not be different or to not just speak your truth or to not. So this is why, what you do is so important, Chris, because you're giving people an opportunity to do just that. And that's powerful.
that's what I love more than ever. It's just having people come on and just telling their stories. Too often nowadays we walk by people that could have done something very incredible, you know, and we would never know because we never reached out to that person to even get to know them. We're too quick to judge anymore, especially this last couple of years. It's everything that's happened. It's caused us to be more distant than ever. Technology was beginning to do that in ways, but also at the same time being sheltered for the last almost 3 years because of COVID. It really pushed us away. But this is my goal: is just to bring us all back together for people to see these stories and hopefully, be encouraged, be inspired, be moved, uplifted. Let them know that they're not alone, whatever they're dealing with. And,
Exactly.
next time you're with somebody on the bus or you're just walking by or in a restaurant somewhere, just anywhere really, get to know that person in front of you. So we're so quick to, danger stranger. But and I'm not saying, you know, be cautious too. Don't just don't just talk to like everybody, but don't judge too. My point is before you judge, get to know that person.
Exactly. There's something to be said about the simple things, holding a door for somebody that's coming in behind you or even waiting for them. You know how many times I've done that where I'm holding a door for someone I don't know. I'm just waiting for them and they go, I'm like, don't rush. Don't rush. I'm just here to be like, hey, hope you have a great day. You know, little things like just a smile, even, or even just an acknowledgement as you're walking by with someone. And I know in some different cultures, that's not a thing. Like that's, not something that is done. But I feel like here, because things have been so messy and messed up and a lot of challenges the last 2 years and tragedy and trauma for all of us over the last few years, that we need to kind of get out of that and get out of our own egos and out of our heads and more into our hearts. And you never know what's going to happen with those moments that you do, and it also makes you feel a little bit better. You know, if you can brighten someone's day with just a smile or a look or even just a small word of encouragement, you don't know what that impact's going to be for somebody. And that's the same thing with teaching. You never know the impact you're going to have on someone as an educator. And so it's so important to have those relationships with your learners and to have those relationships with your colleagues, but you need to feel safe to do that. You need to have an environment and a culture that's set up for you to feel like you belong and that you're safe to take risks in lesson design, lesson methodology, having fun and joy in learning. I love fun. That's the biggest thing. And I think no one can take that away from you. That's the one thing no one can take away from you is learning, because information is everywhere. And we can form those relationships and make learning personal, accessible, and fun, and support people even when it's hard or challenging.
And yeah, too often we paint it as learning's boring. Learning's not fun. That's what boring people do, but really, that's not true at all.
Learn outside of school. If you think about it,
Yeah,
learning is not just confined to school, whether it's remote like this or in person. You still learn things when you leave. Children still learn things when they leave and they go off and they're learning to cook with their families, or they're learning certain skills because of their experience, or they're picking up something they've read, or they're learning something from a movie they're watching. You are constantly learning something
yeah.
at some point.
And the more you do it, though, it opens the door for more opportunities, more things that you want to. Once you figure out how easy it is to learn stuff and how to pick up stuff, it's just wow.
Yep.
Once you keep going with the cycle, man, you're unstoppable. And that's the thing. Nothing is impossible. You could do anything you put your mind to.
Especially when you have the right supports in
Oh,
place and you have the right people around you and you have the barriers, removed for you in order to do that and thrive. Because some people have to do more, put more effort in, and have to do more, workarounds to get to a place where somebody like myself might not have to. And so I always wonder, like, well, why is that even happening? And some of it's systemic, and some of it's because of racism or ableism or sexism or any of those isms, or capitalism, or economics, like socioeconomic status, and that you have to work 5 times as harder as somebody that doesn't have those barriers in place. And I just think that's wrong. Instead of going, well, just put yourself up by your bootstraps over here, how about you put a hand up, put a rope out, or share and say, here, I got you, and I want you to feel empowered and successful and be happy and thriving. And my husband and I talk about this a lot. We spend a lot of time talking at night. It's one of our things. And one of the things we talk about is the concept of teaching someone to fish or giving someone a fish.
oh,
And so if you teach someone to fish, right? And you teach them to fish and they can catch the fish and they're resourceful and knowledgeable. And I think about universal design for learning for this, because it's about, building learners, building expert learners. So if you teach someone to fish, they're becoming an expert learner in fishing and the different types of fish. And if you give them the skills and the strategies and supports, maybe it's a different rod, maybe it's a different worm, maybe it's a different hook, maybe it's a different environment, whatever it is, so that maybe it's a different boat so that they can be successful, whatever it is. You have now given them the skills and practices that they need to be thriving and agents of their own learning for life. But if I just give you the fish, you didn't learn anything other than, well, if I ask, you're just going to give me the fish and I don't have to do anything. I'm not getting any intrinsic motivation. I'm not engaged in the process. I'm just being fed. And I liken that to like curriculum, where we're just spoon feeding curriculum to kids and not inviting curiosity and creativity in how we're teaching. Yes, we need to teach skills. We need to teach specific skills, but we can do that with a curious mind and with a fun and a joy about that. If you're not passionate about what you're doing as an educator, it's going to show. And sometimes it's really hard because the challenges teachers are facing today are nothing like anyone has ever seen. And, hats off to teachers that are still in those spaces doing the work and doing what they need to do so that kids are learning and thriving. But the constraints and the barriers they have is just wrong because it's affecting our children and it's affecting our educators. It's I just call it like this whole like circle of disempowerment where you feel a little disempowered because of barriers. Now educators feel disempowered. Well, now kids are going to feel disempowered. So it's just this thing. So how do you stop it? You re-empower yourself by having those creative experiences, having some fun, having some ownership and say on who, what, when, where, why, and how I'm going to teach, you know, instead of you giving me a box and telling me when, where, how, what, and why I'm going to teach. How about we ask the kids that are in our spaces, what do you want to learn? Because I guarantee you, savvy educator knows how to connect what kids' interests are and what they want to know to basic concepts of reading, of math, of science, of history, of all of it. And having that interest and that curiosity just lends itself to being more engaged and more motivated and a desire to want to learn. Because now I'm teaching you to fish instead of just giving it to you.
Keep going. Keep going. You're preaching, man. You're on fire. Keep it going.
That always stuck with me because in school, I was always the one that was done first. The teacher would be teaching the lesson and I'd be done. She'd already like have the assignment, you know, written on the chalkboard, whatever. And you always knew who the smart kids were and who the smart kids weren't because of the way we were grouped. And it was done homogeneously, which is if I was reading Blue Dilly Dilly, I was in the group where everybody was reading Blue Dilly Dilly. And those were the smart kids. But if I was the kids reading Mysterious Wisteria, I might not be perceived as so smart. And because teachers give those messages subconsciously, those are biases. We talk about unconscious biases. And there are biases behind that aren't fair. They just need more support. It isn't that they're not smart. It's just different. But what if you had given them an audiobook or a book that's, you know, on a computer with text to speech? And I know in the 80s you couldn't realize books on tape. But what if you had done that and had the book in front of them? What would have happened? What supports to help with comprehension are there that weren't there before? You know, and so I always was kind of curious about why that was and why there was these differences and why I love to learn, but there are kids that really did not. They didn't like it at all because they were told that they were not worthy or not enough. And those are negative messages that they stick with you. They stick with you. I had wonderful teachers, but I had some not wonderful teachers. My third grade teacher was not wonderful at all, to the point where I was on anxiety medication.
Really?
And it was very, very traumatic. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. But I had people that were other adults that were very supportive, safe places I could go.
Can you kind of describe like what she did to you that caused this to give you anxiety? What was it?
Oh, well, I was always, as I said, the first one done. And I was quick and I was not really challenged. And she was doing this really cool thing where it was more personalized learning. So you had a grid with your assignments and your subjects. Well, I finished a year's worth of work by December.
Wow.
And so there was nothing left for me to do. But apparently I had them all done. So, well, where's your, and she would say that I didn't hand things in, and I did. Because my mother would have the graded copies at home. Like, but I did hand it in, and she just didn't like me. For whatever reason, she just didn't like me. Sometimes teachers do that. I had a teacher in 8th grade that I adored her. She was so uplifting. She was so supportive. My friend at the time was struggling. Her parents had gotten, it was bad, but she would let me take her into, they had this like little side room. She's like, why don't you two go in the room and kind of study together? And because she knew that she needed additional support, and we would just kind of like talk and process. But one of my other friends, she was absolutely horrible to, and said things to her face that she was stupid and that she wasn't a good writer. And that's like, that stuff sticks with you, and that's damaging. It's not done in a way to make you excel or to do better. It's just mean. It's just mean.
And then
So
it really goes more into like how they were brought up, also how they were taught. And there's a deeper story
exactly.
to that, you know?
And we were all tracked. So I never got to experience things like automotive repair or, typing. I was college prep tracked. No ifs, ands, or buts. And there was no asking me what my interests are or what I wanted to do. I was told, this is what you are doing because you are smart. But I would have loved to have gotten my hands dirty and fixed a car.
Yeah.
That's I'm a gearhead. I love cars and I love fast motorcycles and stuff. And I would have loved to have been fixing cars. My dad, that was stuff I used to do with my father. So I would have loved to have had an opportunity to explore some things in in the voc, they called it voc back then, but now they call it technical school. I would have loved to have explored some things like that. But because I was labeled smart, nope. But on the flip side, the people that were in vocational were considered not smart, but they're very smart. Just got to tell you, you can take an engine apart, put it back together. You're pretty smart in my book because I have really bad visual spatial skills. But everyone's got their strengths and challenges, right? And so for me, it was interesting because here I am in this small town in Maine, right? And it's a football town. So like your worth is your ability to play football. Well, I'm a girl, so that's out. And I used to practice on the high school football field because I thought I could be a field goal kicker. Yep. I'm going to practice. I'm going to be like first female. No, I actually wound up being more like Charlie Brown, when Lucy's holding the ball and he goes to kick and he's like, padoosh. Yeah, that was me. And I didn't have somebody holding the ball. I had it on a tee. The ball would either go behind me or I would just, eat dirt or it wouldn't make it. And so I practiced enough, but they're like, you get to a point where you're like, maybe this isn't my thing. And that's okay. And I would move on. But I am always envious of field goal kickers to this day. Like, and I'm, it's great to see women, in those roles that once, in my time, they weren't. And
Hold on,
it's interesting.
I want to add in here real quick. I actually got to witness it on my team. I got to see a girl kicker come on and do her thing. And
Awesome.
she was really good. So
Awesome. Way better than me.
yeah, she wasn't Charlie Brown in it. She wasn't on the back.
Good. Good. So I wound up being in the band because I figured that's how I got into the football games for free. But I also love music. Music was very much a big part of my family growing up. My grandfather sang in a barbershop quartet. My grandmother on my father's side played piano and sang. My uncle on my father's side sang in numerous bands and DJ'd over the years. And Christmas Eve, the house was shaking because he would play the piano and we would sing. So dancing and singing is very much in my family. Now, I can't sing very well. I'm a novice singer still, but I don't care because it's joyful and it's a way we connect and it's a way that we just celebrate being together is through dancing and singing. And that's just something that's always been in my life, even to this day. And that stuck with me though. And what could I do in school besides playing sports? Because I didn't quite like them either because I thought they're kind of like, why are you being mean to me? I'm doing the best I can here. Right. And I didn't feel like that was very helpful or maybe for some people talking to you like that is a good thing, like in the military or even in sports, that kind of alpha macho, suck it up kind of stuff. And I'm just like, no, why don't you just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. And if I'm not doing it, like, can we just have a conversation here? Because I don't need you yelling at me. I don't like that. Like, you don't need to berate me. You just be nice. I'll do better when you are, when you're supporting people with kindness and compassion, but with also not tough, but more of that growth mindset where you can do anything. You can do this. And maybe it's hard right now, but I'm going to help you through it. That wasn't what I experienced with sports. So I was, forget this, I'm going in the band. And so I did. So I got into football games that way, but that was a great outlet for me. And it was a great sense of community. I have friends still from high school band that we are still really, really close, love them to death. And it was also a place too where kids with disabilities could go and be successful. where they could go and play an instrument, or they could go and play drums, or they could be a part of the experience, because we could support them very easily. And as a drum major, I did. There was one that just had issues with counting. I'm like, all right, look at me. We had a hand signal going on, and that was it. They just needed a visual on top of their music. Like, can we highlight these notes? And then you're going to look at me, and I'm going to do this thing with my hand when I direct. And that means that's your cue to play. Everybody knew it, and it worked. It worked because here's the thing. Communities work together to uplift and support the people
Preach it.
that need more support.
Preach it.
We don't leave people behind. I don't leave people behind. At least I try not to. Sometimes I go really fast, but I'm learning to slow down. But I've always kind of been like that.
And that's the one thing that you get to learn as you grow. You learn that yelling at people is not going to do the trick. It's not going to help. A lot of people think that, well, if I yell at you, you'll understand it. But like you said, if you be kind to people and you talk to them as you want to talk to somebody else,
yeah,
they'll pick it up. They'll learn.
I wonder sometimes too, when I was little, if I had like a sensory thing, because yelling like legitimately hurt my body inside and out, hurts my body to my core, like hurts. And my mom was a yeller. But I realized my mom also loved me very, very much. And I think her yelling had really nothing to do with me. It had some things to do with my mother's own life experience and, having anger in her life that she hadn't dealt with. But, as she's gotten older and wiser, you learn. And, you learn that yelling isn't always the best way to go about it. And talking is probably more appropriate. Even the test signals, this is a test. It would send me under the table, ears closed, crying because it hurt. Like, it was so painful. And that was when I was really young, like 3 or 4. I kind of grew out of it, probably like 7 or 8. I kind of learned to deal with it, but those are things that nobody made me feel bad about it. It was just what I did. It wasn't like, oh, there she goes again. It was more, the test patterns coming on, turn the volume down. They knew, like, this is a test, and I'd run and they'd turn the volume down because they knew, like, it would just send me into like the smoke detectors. Even to this day, the smoke detectors in my house, oh, those hurt because they are so loud. They're so loud.
It kind of sounds like my wife when she first moved to the city, because she was from a small town, and every time the first of the month comes around, the sirens come on, and they I guess they didn't do that in her town. So when they come on, she's like, what's going on? What's happening? She starts, I have to explain to her. I'm like, it's just the first of the month. They're just doing their test, just making sure. And then there's also times where we live by a quarry. So when their sirens go off and they're blowing stuff up, it freaks her out. One time she was out by herself going to the mall, and she heard it go off, and the big old explosion behind it, and it echoes. She started booking it. She started booking it to the bathroom, and everybody else is looking at her like, "What are you doing?" And she had no idea. When she told me like later on that day, I just like, man, I don't know. I could only imagine. Like, what were you thinking? What's going on?
I legitimately feel her pain, because I know, like, even fire alarms when I was teaching in K-12, and I was helping kids with autism who had sensory issues with I'm like, I really legitimately feel your pain, because I do feel your pain. And I, though, had to come up with strategies for myself so that I was managing my reaction so that I could support, learners with autism, who needed that additional support of headphones or a preview or here's how it's going to be, so that you could regulate your body a little bit more and kind of navigate that noise so that it didn't feel like it was just piercing through every fiber of your being, but it was more like, oh, that's really loud. I can't wait to get out of here.
Yeah.
And I think too, just to even be vulnerable with them was good too, to even tell them, like, it hurts my ears too.
Just touch in on it a little bit more, just how you have to train them and teach them that it's okay.
You do. And here's the thing. It's about, I always used to say, working with kids with autism was learning their language. It wasn't about assimilation for me, ever. I always used to say the best way was to, like, find out what makes them tick and design experiences around that. I didn't want kids to hurt themselves or to be in a situation where there was self-injurious behavior thing, but those are symptoms of a larger problem. Like, well, why is that happening? There's something in the environment that's just not conducive. We got to figure this out. And so I'm more of a developmentalist at heart when it comes to that. And really and I never really understood too, because I taught in programs in Massachusetts and in Maine, where, we're like my mom in the basement again, not so dingy though, but with kindergartners, and we're like 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And I'm thinking, why are they here? And these were kids that, were bilingual. I was a minority, and here I am as a white woman in a predominantly Hispanic area in Massachusetts. And I'm from Maine, who had no diversity. So this is my first, like, jump right in. And I loved it. I loved it. I loved it because it was different. I loved it because I was curious. And I loved it because there was so much I learned, but there was so much I didn't understand because I had biases and conditioning. I learned that now, but back then I didn't. And when you're in teacher prep, sometimes there's kind of a savior mentality that comes out, like you're helping these poor people with disabilities. And it's like, wait a minute, it's not about me. This person has a disability. This does not mean it's bad. It means that this person needs more support. There are certain things that they can't do like you and I can, but they can do it in their way. And there's a term called presuming competence. So you want to make sure that it doesn't mean like, oh yeah, it means that I believe with the right supports and with certain things in place, and it's something you want to do, we're going to make it happen. And that you can, and it might take a really long time. I had a student who could not match the color green. And someone was like, give it up, Hill. They're not going to, I'm like, no, I'm not stopping identifying the color green until they get it. Well, guess what? They finally got it. And it took months, and they had been doing it for years before I even stepped in. And I was like, no, everybody's timetable is different. And just because they don't get it on what you think is your timetable doesn't mean that you don't give them repeated opportunities to get it.
Yeah.
And they were like, what are you talking about? Sorry. Our timetable. And people, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it because it never occurred to me. We're in the cafeteria. We would eat with the kids because we're practicing skills and socializing and being in, slightly noisy environments, that you might not be used to. We're not going to eat in the classroom by ourselves. We're part of the community. Out we go. But I'm going to make sure you're supported so that you're successful at that. And the assistant principal one time, there was like the kids were in those grade levels were not there. That was like fighting. There was just like not good. The table where we were at, we're eating, we're talking, we're doing our thing like we always do every day, because we could filter that out because we were focusing on what we were doing. And the assistant principal said, your table's the best behaved table in this whole cafeteria. And I said, and you're surprised why? Can you tell me why that surprises you? Because some of my kids don't speak. They speak with symbols, or they speak with signs, or they speak Spanish or broken English and Spanish, or a combination of all three, or their own language that you decipher and you figure out what they're saying because that's how they speak. And that used to just grind my gears. And I said, well, why don't you come visit us sometime and read us a book? You can really see what goes on down here because we are part of the community. And that was a big, and then you find the people that you can conspire with to kind of move the needle forward a little bit. I had a first grade teacher that I was doing a planting thing with my students. It was spring around this time of year. And she was a first grade teacher and they were doing planting too. So I was sharing what we were doing and how it was going. And just, well, how did they? I'm like, it was great. She said, how about you bring your students in to my room and they teach my kids? And I said, game on. Game on. And it worked. And it was great because we had the right supports. We talked about goals. We talked about the what ifs. We had planned, we prepared, and we set everybody in her class and in my class up for success, so that they were the experts in the room. They were mentors. They were, in essence, mentors
Yeah,
for
I'm just
first
thinking,
graders, which is very age appropriate for that particular segment. And other kids in that age segment would do that very same thing. And so
how
that's what it's
awesome
about.
it is, though, just how inspiring that is. Just
But it's
just taking that in for a moment, just like, wow.
resume confidence, because they can. Just different. You just got to think outside this conception of what you think is capable. What are the possibilities? And we had parents who couldn't afford to take their kids to even like Wendy's or to a restaurant. They didn't go out in the community very much. We did, because we could walk. We were walking distance to a Wendy's. And I had gotten some money. I said, we're gonna try this. We're gonna do a little like community outing. We're gonna walk. So number one, we're getting some exercise. Number two, it's lunchtime. Number three, we got some money, and we're gonna practice reading, taking order, eat, like we're practicing these skills, because families wanted to be able to bring their kids to places.
Yeah.
And so we could practice. And so we had communication boards with the menu items, because they needed the symbols to see like chicken nuggets or whatever, and they could point to whatever the menu items were. And the manager at the time said, "Where'd you get that?" I said, "I made it." He said, "Can I have one?" I said, "Sure." I said, "Well, we have people who can't read the menu in English and can't read the menu even in Spanish that would benefit from these symbols." And it had the prices on it and everything. And I said, "Sure, I'll give you all of them. I'll laminate them." I said, "But on one condition." He said, "What?" I said, "Gift cards, please. So we can come back and practice." And at one point, I want to bring the parents, if they can come and take time. Some parents didn't work and some did. So they took time. And then there were a couple of times, once a month, they would come and eat with us. And one parent was in tears and said, "I've never been able to go out and eat with my child, but I could today." And they didn't have to worry about paying for it. And I'm not saying, like, I'm not being a savior when I'm saying this. What I'm saying is giving an opportunity to show the possibilities.
I just have a question for you. How were you feeling in that moment? Just, was it an incredible feeling just being able to accomplish that, or you're just kind of like, this should be normal?
It should be normal. I felt good, but it wasn't about me. It was about an experience and an opportunity for kids with significant disabilities to be a part of this world and not hidden in a closet or in a basement or in an institution somewhere. They're part of this community and they belong, and we support them in that end of, like, full stop. That's what it was about for me, and it still is to this day.
And really just pushing that forward, just knowing that nobody's different. Nobody's different. Everybody should be treated the same.
Or at least just treated with dignity and respect and kindness and an affirmation of your humanity. Don't ignore people who are different than you, or who you may not understand because they have a significant disability, or they have a different color of their skin, or a different gender, or they don't have a home. We need to be a lot more compassionate and kinder to each other, because the other flip side of it, it's not good. That's been going on for centuries, and I don't know about you, but I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. I want better for my son. I want better for our children, and future generations. I want people to be able to not just survive, but to thrive and find joy and meaning and purpose in their life, and to, learn continuously, and to have those skills that they need to do that. And if they decide to go to college, if they decide to go to a trade school, if they decide to travel the world, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because you know what? You're still contributing to humanity, because you're following what's in your heart and soul. And there's no greater joy on life than that. And we should support each other in all, the pursuit of happiness. It's in our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I like to focus on the pursuit of happiness. Thank you. Even when it's challenging.
How many people tell you they love your heart?
I don't know. Probably. I don't know. I tend to blush when I get compliments. I'm working on that,
I'm
to
definitely
be
saying
honest.
that right now. I love your heart. I love your passion. Just what you're all about, man. We need more of that in the world more than ever right now, especially.
We need more educators like that, but unfortunately, they're burnt out.
Yeah,
And they need help, and they need help and support, and they need our love and compassion. And what happened to when everything was shut down and teachers were the heroes? Teachers were amazing. What happened to the nurses, the health, the people that are like keeping this country together by a thread? And what are we doing to them? We're using fear and other tactics
yeah.
that don't matter, that create a false narrative of what it's really about. And it's affirming our collective humanity, period.
Just we need to install the right stuff again.
Hmm.
Install the positive stuff, the stuff that like we're doing right now. Like
Right,
we're doing right now.
right. Did I tell you I used to pretend to have classrooms when I was a kid?
Really?
I had my Barbie dolls lined up in little couches and rows, and I would tape record myself teaching lessons, and then I would listen to it and critique myself.
Now here's a question for you. Let's see if I'm not the only one person that does this. To pretend like you're on a show or something and they just ask you random questions. And you think of the most random questions that somebody could ask you and you just answer it. Do you do that from time to time or is that just me?
No, I do that too. I totally have. Yeah, yep, yep,
I try to
yeah.
think of like the most random questions that somebody could ask me. I'm like, well, okay, this is how I answer it.
Right, right. How would I answer that? And I'm always curious how other people would answer or how they got to that point. How did they get to that conclusion? My husband and I don't always see eye to eye on stuff, but it's one of the things I love about him because we have mutual respect and understand and trust and love, but we should have that with people we don't even know. We really should, because there's those judgments and barriers behind that where we strive to find the common thread of an issue we don't see eye to eye on. Our voices might get a little raised, we might get a little passionate, but then all of a sudden one of us will go, oh, there it is. Full stop. There's the common thread. Okay, now we're going to take that common thread and we're going to go down the common thread rabbit hole. And we come to, consensus and understanding. We might not still agree, but we can see each other's point of view and honor it and respect it and don't have to change it.
Write that down.
Because
Where's
this is
my notes
valid.
right now?
Right. Both conditions can be true, but it's about just, again, coming back to affirming our own humanity within each other and not just saying, oh my God, he's wrong. No one gets anywhere when you're right fighting. But when you seek to understand, this again, to go back to what you do, you're seeking to understand. That's powerful, Chris. Like that is so powerful because you're getting the variability of perspectives and experiences, and you can take that information in and process it and make sense of meaning of it for yourself. And you can take some of it and say, nope, or you can take some, go, you know what, I really need to sit with this and process this for a minute because this is speaking to me in a way that hasn't spoken to me before.
That's what I
And
love
that's cool.
more than anything. That's taking everybody's information in and
You
putting
can
it in
tell.
here.
You can tell.
Oh, you definitely see it. You see it.
No, you can tell. It's awesome. Very cool.
Thank you. Okay, well, let's go back a little bit, kind of jump back into your story just a little bit. So we talked about your childhood, and then we were beginning to talk about your school experience. Let's kind of dig more into that a little bit. Just tell me what it was all about. How was your school experience?
It was great because I was easy peasy. I was the student that student that got a lot of hundreds and didn't really fail, didn't struggle a whole lot in high school. I didn't study until college, till my late sophomore year of college. It was sociology, and the professor was tough
Not bad.
and gave a lot of information, like a lot of information, and never told you exactly what the test was going to be on. So you had to know like all this information because you never knew what you were going to get. And I had a study partner, and I didn't know how to study because I'd never studied. I'd never studied before.
No?
Never really studied. No, didn't have to. Didn't have to. I could go in cold and just whoop, and they'd be like, "Oh, you got a 98. Oh, bummer." And I also used to be really hard on myself too, because there's the perfectionism complex, which I outgrew. But the funny thing in high school was there were teachers that my mother had, because my mother went to the high school that I went to, and my son actually graduated from the same high school. So we have 3 generations who went to the same high school. There were no teachers I had that he would have back then, but my geometry teacher, I loved Mr. Curtis. He is an amazing human being. And what he didn't know was that I would ask to go to the bathroom because I'd get bored. My grandfather had just passed away and my grandmother was lonely. So I would call on the payphone, which was next to the bathroom. So I did go to the bathroom, but I went to the payphone and I called my grandmother. "What are you doing today?" "Nothing." "Would you like some company?" "I'll come get you at noon." "Okay." Then she'd say, "Do you have any tests or quizzes?" "Nope." And I'd go back up to math, and all of a sudden the intercom, "Excuse me, Mr. Curtis, would you please let Hillary know she's being dismissed at noon? Her grandmother's coming to pick her up for her appointment." My mom didn't know until the 17 dismissals on my report card. And she just went, "Nanny, huh?" And I'm like, "She's only Mom. She misses Pop-Up really bad." And I felt bad, but I also wanted to spend time with her. And I was bored in school. I mean, the period was halfway over and my work was done. So parent conferences happened. And I had told him, "You had my mother in school. What's her maiden name?" And I gave my mother's maiden name. And he said, "My aunt's name." And I said, "That's my aunt." And then his face.
What?
And he said, "My mother's name is your mother?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, that can't be. That can't." I said, "Yeah, it can." So parent conferences come. My mother walks in and he said, "I didn't believe her until you just walked in the door."
Wow.
"I thought she was your sister's daughter."
What?
It's funny because I tend to be like, the older I've gotten, I'm like my mom, but I'm a lot like my aunt. But my cousin, who's 3 years older than I am, is a lot like my mother.
Wow.
So it's interesting. It's an interesting thing, family thing, that there are certain things that my aunt and I are very similar about. There are certain things that my aunt and my cousin are very similar on. There are things that my mother and I are very similar on. There are things that my mom and my cousin are that my aunt and I aren't. So it's an interesting thing when the high school teacher thinks that your aunt's your mother, and really she's not. That was fun. We laugh about that still to this day.
Is it because you were around her more, or how did that work out?
I was around both of them all the time. Growing up, my mom and my aunt are best friends. And so, like I said, I was an only child. I was not lonely at all because I was around my cousins. I was around my cousins all the time. The beauty was I could go home when I was done. Like, I'm tired. I'm going home. I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, I've had enough. I need to go rest and recharge. I'm done. They were lively, adventurous cousins who liked to climb trees and do crazy things. And I just kind of sat there and read a book and played with my Barbies and laughed at them a little bit and devised ways that I would get back at them for teasing me. So we always had things that we did. And then we did silly things. They would say, like, "Just go off and play, go make a play." And so we would make these skits and then perform them behind the couch. You know the book Salem's Lot by Stephen King?
Yes. Great book.
All right. Can't believe I'm telling you this, but I'm going to because it's funny. Back then, my cousins had the Muppet puppets, Kermit the Frog, Fozzie Bear, and Miss Piggy. They each had one. I was a little envious of that. I didn't have a Muppet puppet. There was no Muppet puppet for Hillary. I had to use my uncle's holy sock that we put a Sharpie with some eyes on and some ketchup for blood and little paper teeth for fangs. And we did a rendition of Salem's Lot called Salem's Frog. And we put a sheet over the couch. We had everything. And my claim to fame was I was the sock that went after Kermit. We had storyboards. We had scenes, you name it. We and my parents, oh my God, they would go upstairs and come down in 20 minutes with a skit for us, and we would have to entertain them.
I could imagine, man. It sounds entertaining. The
It was
Muppets
fun.
in a sock, a holy
Oh
sock
yeah,
after somebody.
yeah. And they tried to make me feel, but see, my cousins are funny. They would tease you in one, but at the same trying to make you feel better. It's okay. You're the most important role. Like, I'm a sock.
Here's a sock. Get a
I wanted to
Muppet.
be Miss Piggy, but it's all good. I had my own room. So.
When you think back to those times, does it feel like a movie anymore?
Oh, it could actually. My mom did make movies
Did she?
of my aunts. Oh yes, my mom. If YouTube was around when my mom in her heyday, my mom would be a gajillionaire because her videos were ahead of the time and they were hilarious. When my aunt turned 40, I played my aunt and my cousin played my mother.
Wow.
And we were in my grandmother's house and we filmed, and my cousin played my uncle, and we had the neighbors in my grandmother's neighborhood involved, and all these people for her birthday. It was called This Is Your Life. And I had to reenact things from my cousin, and I had to reenact things from their childhood. And my mom would just give us a little tiny bit of the story. And she said it was freaky because we just naturally, she said, it was like going back, like it happened. What we did was like how they interacted. It's just natural. But it was fun. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. When my mom turned 50, we made a movie for her. And my mom's done a lot of anniversary movies. It was fun doing that stuff. I mean, my childhood, when I reflect back on it, was a lot of fun and a lot of love. And my mom had told my father early on in their marriage, she said, I refuse to bring up a family in a home that doesn't have any laughter in it. I refuse. And I'm glad she did that, because it totally shaped me, like to have joy and fun and things. And I can be serious, and you can be prone to anxiety and seasonal depression from time to time, but at the heart of it, I always look for the bright spots. I look for the fun in it. And
You definitely had that comedian in you.
yeah, my mom and I, one time, we used to like to scare we always used to like scare each other. My mom would have like laundry and I'd jump out behind a door and, ah! And she'd like, and my father and I would laugh. And then my mother and I, one time, we had fireflies. Have you ever seen fireflies like at night?
Yes.
Well, as a kid in our yard, they were filled. The yard was full. It was like its own light show every night. It was amazing. Well, one night we decided to catch some. My dad was taking a shower.
Oh no.
We thought he would love to have a shower by firefly nightlight. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea, but I went along with it. I thought it'd be great. So we caught some fireflies, and my mom and I go in the bathroom, turn the lights on, and go, at the same time, he's laughing, and my mother and I are hysterical. We're laughing so hard, like we have to, like, one of us has to run to the bathroom, which happens a lot in my family. Someone has to run to the bathroom because they're laughing so hard. But I'm grateful for that. A lot of kids don't have that. I'm grateful. And, we had adversity, and I had some things happen in my life. We all have our pain points, right? But at the end of it, I know that I'm loved. I knew that I was loved. I knew that my parents adored me. I adored them. And I knew that I was safe with them. I knew I was safe with my grandmother. I knew I was safe even with my cousins. I knew that I could just be me and not have to pretend to be someone I wasn't. And we tend to do that in spaces in this world where we pretend to be someone we're not. Why don't we just be ourselves, because we're conditioned to not be? And so there's a lot of unlearning behind that too, but that joy and laughter like that, I wanted that for my son too. And it took a long time, but I got there.
Yeah, and really just that alone, you wanted to share that to the world. You wanted other people to feel that as well. That's awesome.
And just be a big goof. I am a nerd. I am a big goof. I'm a dork. I love to laugh, and I find, certain things funny. It just you never know what's going to make you laugh. And I'm not talking about disparagement humor, because that's not funny. But what I'm talking about is just enjoying the simple things. Just like last night, my husband and I had gone out. And we came home and we listened to music till I don't even know what time it was, and we were dancing and laughing and just enjoying being present for each other and just being together and being grateful that, we've had this wonderful life that we've built together so far. We'll be married for, oh my gosh, we'll be together for 9 years this month, and we'll be married for 8. And it's the greatest gift I could have gotten outside of my son and outside of his son is each other. And I feel like everybody deserves to be loved completely for who they are. And I'm grateful for my husband because we do that for each other. And everyone deserves that. Everybody. And, I want that for my son. I want that for everybody, to have someone in their corner that just says, you know what, babe, I got you, and you can do anything. You can do anything. And he's, really instilled confidence and faith in me that I had lost a long time ago. So I'm very grateful to have that.
I feel like you're gonna bust out in a song right now.
No, I'm not, because you don't want me to do that, because it's gonna sound like fingernails on a chalkboard.
Come on, let's hear the song from the Beatles. All you need is love.
Yeah, you do. It is. It's true. It's really true. At the heart of it all is love. And, acts of justice and acts of equity are acts of love. Because when I, telling those stories about my former students or telling stories about people who you've supported, it's about love. And Mia Mingus, who's a disability rights activist, with Alice Wong and her Disability Visibility Project, which I love. And they have a access is love. And they say when access comes from a place of love, it's not something that you have to do, it's something you want to do. And so when you have that desire, that want and that need, it shifts it. It shifts it. Just those simple words of I want to do this because it's the right thing to do. I want things to be more just and equitable because it's the right thing to do. That's love. That's the ultimate act of love. And when you're acting in fear, that's not love. That's hiding. That's scared. And that's a scarcity type of mindset that, for whatever reason, you got to unpack that and figure out why and change your language around it. And I know that I'm being simplistic about it, but when you can do that and commit to it daily, it really transforms things. I mean, it's a lot of inner work to get to the outer stuff,
And once people realize that that's really what it's all about, that's what life is itself, it's love.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you give to, like how we started this, is this being grateful for everything and just showing love towards each other. I mean, the more you do it, man, life just becomes incredible around you. And you begin to appreciate everything.
Mm-hmm.
Love
And all the little things. Little things. I just celebrated a big birthday, and my friend, who I've known since I was a kid, had dropped off a present, and the card said, these were done by someone who sees the beauty in everything. When I opened up the present, she had framed pictures of sunsets I had taken and had posted on social media, and she had them printed and framed. So I'm going to hang them up on the back wall.
Wow.
My mom you'll see them. But I thought that was neat.
You had that too.
But I've done the same thing for her because she's a brilliant artist, and I've said, this was done by someone who's just got an amazing eye for detail, and it's her.
And in that moment, you probably were just feeling that tingly feeling all inside you, just like, wow, I feel it. I feel it.
I just feel great. I just feel grateful to have these things in life. I feel grateful for my life. I feel grateful to be able to do what I do now and to have creativity and joy in what I do, and to be with a team of people that are working on a common goal and blazing a trail that's going to help people with significant disabilities and their families understand the function of their disability, but what they can do to live a really amazing life that isn't one that is, that's rooted in love, but is more of a social model, but with some medical, because you got to understand some of that, but more of the humanitarian aspects of it. And that, to me, like, being a part of that is bigger than anything I could ever imagine. And I'm grateful every day to go to work. And because I just left K-12, I'm still consulting outside of it for K-12, but I'm remotely working as an instructional designer, and I love it. And I'm grateful. Like, how did I get so lucky to have these opportunities? And I know part of it's probably privilege, but like you said, sometimes the energy out is the energy you get back. So,
And that's how it works. It's written.
and it's hard sometimes too if you're dealing with people who struggle with mental health and mental illness or post-traumatic stress, which is real. Not just soldiers do it. People every day are struggling with things we don't talk about and we don't feel comfortable talking about because you're weak if you talk about it, which I think is a load of,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
not true. I think we need to be able to talk about those things and be okay to be vulnerable with each other. But we've had these conditions in society where we don't feel safe to do that. And I've done that because I've had my own trauma and triggers. And instead of feeling guilty or ashamed, which I have, I've just apologized and affirmed to try and do better, because I know what it's like to feel really awful or to not feel, like you belong or you're important in some way, or if you've been abused at all, or if you've been victimized at all, it's not your fault. And it's learning to love yourself, but also learning that you can change your response when you get the right therapy and the right support. So there are people, in communities all over. I'm privileged. I have access to healthcare. I have access to things that I can get and I need. But there are people in this country that don't, that need help and need our services and need our kindness and love. And that is what troubles me. But I have hope that the more we have these types of conversations, that there are more people that will come into positions of power and turn them to positions of honor and empower and really make a difference. And instead of it just being stuff on paper, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it actually happens for everybody.
I'm gonna speechless. And really, you are making the difference. You and others are making the change in the world that so needs to happen, and you're starting to see it unfold.
What was it Gandhi said? Be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yep.
Starts with us. We have to change ourselves, and complaining does only so much. Venting feels good in the moment, but really it's okay, what can I do? And
And
sometimes you can't. The only thing you have control over is how you respond to
yep,
things.
to make the change, you have to start it yourself. You have to make the change. It only takes one person.
Right. 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 For sure. For sure.
We have to step back just a little bit and kind of go into how you got into your career. I can already tell, from your mom and just being around
Yeah.
it, but
Well, it was funny. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I went to school at UMass Amherst, which I loved UMass Amherst. That was a really great school. It was like being close enough to being home, but being far enough away. I had spent a year in Florida my freshman year, which I had a little too much sun and a lot of fun. And I needed to come home. Like, this probably isn't a good environment for me to be learning and growing. It's not in the way that I need to. So I went to UMass Amherst and I was a pre-law, legal studies. It was kind of pre-law. And I took legal research and writing. And the professor had said, if you're going to be a lawyer, this is what you're going to be doing all the time. Stuck in the law library, writing really dry. And you had to write in this certain formulaic way. And I'm creative. I don't want to write like that. I understood it. I just didn't want to do it. It wasn't interesting. I didn't want to be stuck in a library all day. And I said, and I went to him, I said, really? This is really, I'm like, are you kidding? Are you trying to scare people? He goes, no, I'm being 100% honest. This is exactly what you'd be doing. And I just went, okay, thanks. And I'm like,
nope.
oh, so you mean I'm not going to be like Susan Day in LA Law arguing? Oh, man. So and that was my junior year. So it was like, oh no, now what am I going to do? And I just said, I'll figure it out. They have job fairs. Something will happen. I'll figure it out. And I wound up at a job fair, and they had a booth for a school for kids with significant disabilities, but they also helped pay for your master's degree in special education. I went, special education? You mean I could teach kids with this in a public school after? And they said yes. And I said, sign me up.
I'm all about it.
So I did. And I got my master's, spent 3 years there, and then off I went and taught in Massachusetts and then moved back home in 2004 back to Maine because I just wanted something smaller and simpler and quieter. It was getting a little congested where we were living, and I just wasn't feeling it. And I wanted to come home, and my family supports were here, and I wanted to be home. And at the time, my ex-husband was commuting, telecommuting full time, working remotely before it was even a thing. And I said, well, we can do that home in Maine. So we did. And I wound up actually leaving the classroom because I was becoming more of a manager and less of a teacher and less of a creative and less of a, having fun with the kids and learning a lot. That I was like, no, this is not what I want to do. And I just felt like I'd done all I could in that role. And so I got out, and eventually in 2009, there was a posting for an assistive technology specialist. And I went, what's that? I think I could do this. And I applied and I got the job. It was a 2-year contract. I just left in December after 12 years.
Wow.
And I loved it. There were a lot of things about it I loved, but there were a lot of things about it. I loved a lot of what I had to do, but there were some things you get to a point where you just know you've done all you can and it's time to move on. And I've been very fortunate where I got to present, and I still do, presenting at conferences, networking with people, having robot internships where we had kids from, students from the University of Maine at Farmington come in and see assistive technology at the classroom level and at the therapeutic level at a tier 3 level, so that they could actually see what it looked like in schools and work with me and work with the professor at the time. And it was really fun. I mean, the kids, coming down the hall with the robot, it was like Sheldon and the Big Bang Theory. I'm like, my dream has come true. I'm so excited because I was like, I want to do that. And a few years later, here I am. But I also wanted to work from home. I wanted something quieter. I wanted to have more control of my time. And I missed the creativity. And so this opportunity came to be an instructional designer. And I had to say yes. It was like, I have to. And it was a same thing, like short-term contract with potential for long-term. So, proof of concept is there, and I'm hopeful that it continues. And I work at higher ed as an adjunct for programs in inclusion and universal design. So I design courses in universal design for learning and assistive technology. And I try and do the same thing for teachers that are currently there, is to give them some of their power back so that they can bring some of the joy and fun and learning back, because I don't want them to take my course because it's a checkbox or because they need the credit. I want them to take the course because they can have something they can take and directly use in their setting that week, unless it's a summer. That's a different story. But I love that when they come back and say, I tried this and this is went really well. And this is what I'm going to take it. I'm going to actually do this. And I'm like, tell me how it goes, because I really want to know what this did for your learners, but what it does for you as a practitioner. How does it make you feel when you can provide, when I can give you, universal design for learning, give you some options and choices and flexibility, and model that in course design. So you get to experience it, but then you get to apply it. That, to me, that's nothing better, because I feel like I can give teachers some of their power back when they're taking a course that I'm doing. And the consulting stuff too is fun. There's lots of communities of people. Twitter has been amazing. I never thought I would meet the people that I've met on Twitter and met them in real life. And I have people that they're like family to me. They're more than just my friends. They're more than just counterparts. We're all working together for a common goal and a common purpose. And there's so much love there in that community that I finally feel like I belong somewhere. And that's cool. That's cool. Like, I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to be doing. And there's no greater joy than that.
Knowing that you're on the right path where you need to be.
Yep. Okay. Got to get quiet and listen. But I feel like, God or whatever either puts obstacles up to teach you a lesson or gives you opportunities to see you thrive and shine. And I just, like I said, I'm grateful. My heart is so full because there are amazing people on Twitter that do amazing things. And without that community, I don't think I would have that depth of gratitude that I have because of the variability of the people and the diversity of the people that I'm connected with. And that to me is just amazing. Like I just look and go, I am so grateful. And of course, coming off of 2 years of not seeing people, and now you're starting to see people, it has a whole different feel
So
and a
yeah,
whole different level of gratitude. Seriously,
yeah.
nothing better, nothing better. So
All you
yeah,
need is love. All right,
yeah.
as we begin to wrap up this thing, I just want to say thank you for coming on and telling your story, man. I know without a doubt, whoever's listening right now, whoever's watching, is been moved, been inspired, and probably laughing at my frog voice. But thank you for making this far.
You did great. Hey, it was, if this was last week, I would have been the frog voice. So
I'm Kermit.
hey, wait, I don't have my sock out. Come on.
See, we got to rehearse
I'm
this.
not prepared.
Come on, the side.
Wait, let me go get one.
But all right, as we wrap this thing up, let's talk about the bonus questions. That
I feel like I'm on The Price is Right now.
the bonus questions, the 3 questions that people don't get asked all the time. But where do you like to travel? At all the places you ever been, what is your favorite?
There are places I haven't been that I want to go, but I'm going to answer your question. Eleuthera in the Bahamas is my heaven on earth. I cannot wait to go back again. I hope I get to go back and take my husband there someday because I'm grateful for my parents for giving us an opportunity to go with them after my grandfather passed, and I'd helped take care of him. And that was my dad's way of saying thank you. I'm like, that's a great thank you present. Thanks, Dad. And then when I turned 39, I went celebrated my birthday there with them. And it's delightful. It's quiet. It's unspoiled. It's beautiful. And it's warm. And there's oceans and palm trees and wonderful food. So yeah, I'm good.
All right,
Totally off the beaten path.
I'm going to get my ticket now. So I'll see you later. I'm heading out. The way it's been here in Ohio, I'm heading out.
I know, seriously. I
Heading
can't
out.
wait to travel again.
All right, second question. Where did you meet the love? Where'd you meet your husband?
I love this story. So, April 19th, 2013 is when I met my husband. And I met him at a local sports bar down the road from my house.
Ooh.
And my teacher friends and I would go every Friday after work for happy hour. We'd listen to a little acoustic music, have some appetizers, have a drink or two, and then I go home. And at the time, I had just gone through a divorce, and I was living with my parents, and I was in the process of building what you see here. I wasn't doing it myself. I had some help, but the one of the bartenders there, it was her birthday, and she had said, Hillary, can you stay late? Because I would and then go home and be with my son and my parents. And can you stay late? And I joked, I said, well, let me ask my parents if I can get permission to stay out late. This is my birthday. I want to spend time with you. Like, you come and you don't stay very long, and you need to stay out. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I, of course, said to my parents, well, so it's so-and-so's birthday. And they said, yeah, we'd really like to spend time with your son without you because we're the grandparents and we want to spend time with him. So off you go, have fun. So I went out and hanging out with my friends. We were just talking. And then my husband was there with some of his friends. And a mutual friend of ours, I think, kind of saw if those two would be cute together. I don't really know, but I think so. And one of them had walked up to me and said, hey, so-and-so lives around the corner from you. And I went, really? That's great. I'm going to have a neighbor. So I went to walk over and say, I hear we're going to be neighbors. And she said, yeah, have you met my friends? No. And so she introduced me, and my husband was the last one. And he had this funny reaction. Whoa, who are you? It made me laugh because no one's ever said that to me. Like, whoa, who are you? I'm like, I'm Hillary. Who are you? And we just wound up talking. And there's a place, like there's a burger place that sells like hot dogs. It's like a thing if you're here. Like, I don't know if you have them in Ohio. Like, if you've gone out or if you go somewhere or whatever, and there's like a burger joint or like a, like a food truck or something. We have one of those, but it's not a food. It used to be a food truck, but then they built a physical space. It's called Rapid Raise. It's yummy. And so we went and had a hot dog and chocolate milk and talked some more. And then he was like, "Can I have your number?" And we swapped phone numbers, and we're out very late talking, just talking, hanging out. And the next day he texted and asked me like out on a date, like a date, like dinner and a movie date. And a year to the day later, we got married.
Wow.
Which we were not going to get married, because at the time he was like, "You ever want to get married again?" I said, "No."
No.
Said, "What about you?" And he said, "No." And I said, "You and I are going to get along just fine." And it was, I think the universe had another plan in mind.
It's like,
and
oh, really?
yeah, we decided, and we had been involved in a car accident in November of 2013. We got rear-ended by a U-Haul, and he had to have a fusion done in the front part of his neck. So he had to have 2 vertebrae fused. And at the time he was in between health insurance, and I had made a joke about health insurance. He said, "Well, we should get married." I said, "Yes, you know, you want to marry me for my health insurance." He said, "Well, no, that's not really the reason." And I said, "Wait a minute, what?" So I thought about it. We should get married. So that's funny. I thought about it too, but I didn't think. And then we just decided, like, that was after his surgery, and we just decided that we're going to do it on that day a year, like, because we know the date we met, so it's great to do it a year later. So we got married at my mother's house, because after I moved into this house, my parents moved into their new house, which was number 2 on my list of houses to buy. Interesting. And got married at their house, and my mother-in-law did the ceremony. So it was just immediate family, and our sons stood up for us. And then we had a reception after at my parents' house, and it was perfect. And I wore purple, and it was amazing. It was aside from the birth of my son, was one of the happiest days of my life.
Imagine.
I got very lucky, and I looked at it as I got a second chance to do it right.
Amen.
You know,
Amen.
and to deal and heal from, a very painful experience, but I learned a lot. I learned how strong I was. I learned how bad trauma and addiction can be, and how it devastates families, and how you got to do the work, because your children are watching, and they deserve for you to be the best version of yourself. And again, I had the support of my parents through all of that. And, therapy does wonders for people, and it's important to do that work for yourself, because you deserve it. And so if I can, model that for my son, so that he has that with him and he's taking care of himself and other people, then cool. But yeah, that's how we met, and we'll be celebrating 9 years together on April 19th.
Awesome. And the final question: dogs or cats?
Oh, see, can't be either or, because but I've had both. But I have 2 cats now. One thinks that they're a dog. Totally thinks he's a dog. And if you say it's time for bed, he comes to bed like a dog, lays like a dog, acts like a dog, meows like a dog, meows like a dog. It's funny. But we did have a dog. We had to put her down in 2016. So I like both, but I'm more of a cat. I was brought up more on cats, because my mom could not have a dog, because she would dress the dog up and spoil it, and not like let the dog walk and carry it. So my dad said, "No dogs for you." So I think if we had had dogs, I'd probably be I love animals, but cats, yeah. Cats cool, but I like dogs too. That's a tough question. I don't like these either or ones. It's like, what about both? Context matters.
That's why I put that as the last question. The tricky question. Okay, say somebody's out there right now, and they're seeking advice on they want to make the be the difference in the world. They want to make that first step to be the change they want to see in the world. What is your advice for that person?
Wow. Find out what it is, um, do the internal work, and find a community of people who will support you and support the work to make that change, because you can't do it alone. You can't. You got to rely on other people. You might want to be strong and independent, and I can do this myself, but it's okay to be vulnerable and ask for help. And it's okay to do things in community with people. And it's okay to do things with people that might not see eye to eye with you, because it's a ripple effect. And the more, seeds you plant, and the more opportunities to talk with people like you and have conversations with just people about life in general, and have open, honest conversations and not talk about the superficial stuff, and connect, that's where you're going to make change. And if you believe in something passionately enough, and you believe in equity and justice passionately enough, there are enough people out here that are committed to making that happen. You'll find your community, and you'll find people that really just want things to be better and things to be a kinder, gentler, peaceful world. There's a lot more of us out here than you think. And you're
Well,
not alone.
well said. Well said. Alrighty, that's it, folks. You heard the story of Hillary. She told you from the very beginning up until this point. She has plenty more to go. The journey is only beginning. But this is Chris. I'm signing off here. I just want to say thank you once again for watching. Thank you for listening. And also, before I sign off, if you'd like to tell your story sometime, this is a platform for everyone. So just feel free to message me sometime. And I promise you, well, I'll try to, that I won't have the Kermit voice every time. But this is Chris.